مساء الخير.
Good evening, Ms.
Again, may I kindly remind you to use headsets available at your desks for the opening remarks and presentation delivered either in Arabic or French. Thank you for your attention. السيدة الرئيسة للمجلس الأعلى للتربية والتكوين والبحث العلمي، السيدة نائبة
The UNICEF representative, deputy representative, and foreign organizations and international organizations. Distinguished guests, it is my pleasure to welcome you in this international forum that is organized by the High Council, the Superior Council of Education and Scientific Research about the policies, strategies of preschool changes, and it is my pleasure to give the floor and the word to Burqiya, the president of the council. The Burqiya, please, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, representatives of national institutions and international ones, Madam, the representative of UNICEF, Mr. the direction of international national evaluations body, ladies and gentlemen, I would like first to welcome you, our guests and partners, national and international ones, who have responded to our invitation to take part in this meeting, and we are here to benefit from their experience and expertise. I thank particularly UNICEF and its representatives for the high-level partnership with the international body for evaluation years ago, in particular about the preschool level. The organization of this meeting about the practices and political strategies, and this is within the realm of the interest we accord and to the preschool education. The preschool is of great interest for childhood, and it's a stake, and all the studies show that the preschooling influences the cognitive capacities of children, and it shapes their future. Preschooling is good for development and for next steps for life in general. The stake of preschooling is very important. Studies show that going from one step to another step, it's depend on high level and high quality preschool education for the development of childhood, and it impacts the level and the quality of education in society. In the framework of our estimation, our council gives great importance to the development of preschooling, and measures the progress and the growth and the supplementary efforts that will realize in the evaluations and for the educative system, and concerning the state and preschooling. And it's undeniable that the efforts made in Morocco during the last decade, quantitative in quantity and in quality, some foundations in collaboration with the public authorities, taking into account the importance of development and in our country. Today, the rate of preschooling is increasing, and this witnesses the goodwill of public authorities, and this leads to the extension or the development in our country. Extra efforts should be done to reach at 100% schooling that is generalized all over the country. And this witnesses the interest given to preschooling, and the objective of this meeting is to give importance of a moment of exchange and confrontation of our ideas and the analysis and the role of preschooling in educative system and in pedagogical practices. We give higher importance to this council, and the interventions in this seminar will be exchanging ideas between specialists about different aspects that concern the cognitive learning modes and the pedagogical practices, training, and the professionalization of the personnel and the staff. I salute the partnership with UNICEF since years ago, and the representatives, Madame Nasreen Daoud and Madame the representative of UNICEF, Laura Bill. This partnership, which is steady since years, and this witnesses the expertise and to reinforce the capacities of our researchers. And I thank UNICEF for the collaboration about the international body of evaluation. And I thank the director of the national body of evaluation for the made efforts to organize this meeting. I thank all people who have responded to our invitation. And this meeting will be for sure a moment for sharing experience, exchanging for the benefit of education in our country. I wish you a good stay here in Morocco, and I thank everyone. Thank you very much.
شكرا السيدة الرئيسة. بعد الكلمة الافتتاحية للسيدة الرئيسة أدعو السيدة نسيم أول نائبة
to thank the representative of UNICEF.
Conseil supérieur de l'éducation de la...
Madame Borkia, the president of the scientific research, Mr. Reitman Sour, the director of national body of evaluation, and members of the council, let me to start my intervention by to say that we share everything, and the very beginning of this decisive. Here we build the basis of socialization and the trust in which determines the trajectories of future steps. During the beginning, the preschooling is one of the most important keys to make cognitive progress, psychomotricity progress, and to benefit from high quality preschool education is a very decisive step to be done by the end, and to success in school and in life. The economists have been reminding us of this importance, because it shapes the future of a state, and it's in economics, social and every other. It's a leverage. It leverages the educative system in our country, in Morocco. The choice was clear and ambitious to make from preschool the pillar of educative trajectory in the framework law 1117, and since 2018, it was a very successful political will, and it was a good start in the schooling program. And this is done through partners with the National Foundation and the international partners, among which UNICEF is one, and they give a higher interest to the preschooling education. In order to succeed the educative policies, this should be based on solid grounds, and in this spirit, the national body for evaluation, in partnership with UNICEF, an evaluation and assessment for preschool, in being done within the frameworks, international frameworks. Morocco reiterates its engagement and commitment to guarantee high quality schooling for children, and international engagement is a strong signal for the future development, and in order to enrich our dialogue and to orient public policies and future investments to help invest in very equitable and good quality preschool to shape the future of the child. This assessment does not give only importance to access, but in what happens within the class, the educative practices and the global education of children, and it gives us a very profound and rigorous view of preschooling in Morocco. The objective of this is to enlighten the public policies and to give the tools for decision makers, and in order to guarantee the rights of every child. And we are not here to meeting to analyze the results, but to act all together, and moving from the logic of expansion to a logic of consolidation and to quality making. And with our public partners, civil society, family, we have the responsibility and the possibility to transform these very starting years into success. Preschooling is not a favor; it's not. It's a right, and this is one of the biggest promises that a society can give to children. And I thank the committee and the council, the higher council, for the efforts made in this context. Merci.
المغرب والآن يسعدني أن أعطي
I would like to thank, and I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Youssef.
President, Deputy President, I think Madam the President and the representative of UNICEF have shed light on strategic risks that may occur in this field and in the system of education and the training. And I would like to add something to contextualize this seminar, the evaluation and assessment that has to do with preschooling, since the launching of the preschooling policy, and this evaluation and assessment help to identify the acquired points and the challenges in terms of quality. It's an evaluation that is founded and based on research in the field of policy education sciences. And this confirms that preschooling is not only a school sector, but it goes beyond this, and it has to do with social equality. It works on social integration, and all the studies have been done and conducted in this field confirm this important role. It's a sector which it pays off economically speaking and socially speaking, and we invest in preschooling, we will reap a good harvest in the quality and for a future. And between primary education and preschool education. This evaluation and assessment try to make a report and a link between the results and the contextual and environmental factors, like family factors, the school, the level of socio-economic situation of families, the pedagogical practices, and as we will see next all the presentations, and this will have to do with the learning of children. It's at a very large age, and we will shed light on different parts. In this context, this seminar will enable us to exchange about the approaches in preschool education, not only to share our expertise and knowledge, but to enlighten the strategic decision-making process and in our country and worldwide. I thank you very much.
شكرا سيد هشام.
Would like to thank Mr. Hisham Mansour. After these words, we are going to resume our activities of this seminary. We are with us the professor from the University of from this session she's going to deliver her presentation online. Can you hear us, Professor? Hello, can you hear us? هل تسمعونني? Yes, we can hear you and we can see you. Thank you so much. سوف أتبادل.
Yeah, we can try.
Okay, let me see if this works.
So we can try.
Can you see my slides?
Yeah, we can see beautiful.
Yes, we can see your slides.
Thank you all for inviting me to be here today. It is truly an honor. One of my favorite places in the world is Morocco. And I'm so thrilled to see what you are doing in early preschool education. So let me move on and tell you what we're doing in active playful learning in the United States. And I should tell you that the methods that I'm talking about today are also those that are becoming policy in many states in the United States and also around the world in policy. So let's give it a whirl. I want to start with a quote from Yuval Noah Harari that he wrote in 2021. He said, "The Industrial Revolution has bequeathed us with the production line theory of education." It's easy to laugh at this one because almost everyone agrees that no matter its past achievements, it is now bankrupt. Right now, we aren't preparing children for a world in which there's AI. Our children need to have the foundation for learning that they're going to get in preschool. And our children need to learn to think beyond what we have created tests for. So in the United States, in England, in Europe, and at UNESCO, policymakers are turning to those who study the science of learning for ways to think about education and transformation. And just to give you a sense of how widespread this is, I have spoken a couple days ago in France, where the Ministry of Education is considering thinking about new policies for young children. In England, where we talked about how to use some of these policies for the learning of math. In Japan next week. And today, I'm so honored to be here in Morocco. And I wish I could really be in Morocco. So let's start with what you're doing in Morocco, where universal preschool education is expected to reach all 4 and 5-year-olds by 2028. You and your policies are setting a standard for the world, promoting universal access, quality standards, equity and inclusion, and teacher empowerment. I want to just pause on teacher empowerment, because for years and years, the world has taken respect away from teachers rather than allowing them to be agents who enjoy the profession of teaching with their children. In an article by Saad and Fobar last June, they applaud the enormous progress that's going on in Morocco while still worrying about large class sizes. So as you think about policy in preschool, and as you roll this out, it's critically important that if you're going to have larger class sizes of 19 to 1, then we need to at least have aides in every classroom. We have a mostly female workforce at this point, and when they evaluated the quality as teachers were moving from traditional religious schools to more modern schools, they saw that there was still a lag in progressive educational practices that are brought to you by the science. So today I'm going to propose a very bold move. It's built on the premise that we can evaluate early education in Morocco by applying an active, playful pedagogy. And here is the bold move that teaches in the way that human brains learn. If we teach in the way human brains learn, scientists project our kids will learn better. What they learn will be more sticky, in that they will remember it longer. And we will also find that they're better able to transfer what they've learned to new situations. So what does it mean? The science shows us that children grow when experiences are active, engaging, meaningful, socially interactive, iterative, and joyful. What this means is that any education, especially for young children that are passive, that means children sitting around for too long, listening to a teacher spewing information, will not be as effective as an education in which the kids are engaged and actually doing things rather than just listening. Also, I want to highlight how important socially interactive is. The human brain is social by design. Our species flourishes when we engage in human-to-human interaction. And that does not happen in our preschool nor in our formal school education. And I'll show you some evidence of that. So we must also focus on how children learn and on what they're learning. If we change our pedagogy to something that is active, engaged, meaningful, socially interactive, and joyful, our children will learn a suite of skills that in English we call the 6 C's. Collaboration. That may be the most important thing that you learn in preschool. Learning how to get along with other people. Learning how to navigate that if you want the swing, you don't just clobber the child who's on the swing. You find a way to work together and share time on that screen. Collaboration begets communication, the ability to use strong language skills. And those collaborations and communications are the foundation we now know of reading and of math, as I will show you in a bit. So it turns out, if you don't have collaboration skills and communication skills, our children will not learn content. And once they have the content, then they can learn to critically think. And yes, even little kids critically think, creatively innovate, and have the confidence to fail, dust off their shoes, and then try again. Perseverance. And to build good citizens of the future, our children need these skills. Finally, we want to make sure that everything that we do is nested in a culture. Where are families at? What are their values and beliefs? And how do we align what goes on in the school with what's going on in the home and the community? What I've shown you so far is the basis of our theoretical and practical program that we call Active Playful Learning. It is a program that is designed with scientists in tandem with policymakers and with educators, administrators, and teachers. And here's our 3-part equation. Start with the who. Who's the audience in your school? Who's the community? And what are the family values that you hold dear? Next, go to the how of learning. That it should be active and engaging, meaningful, socially interactive, iterative, and joyful. Are our classrooms exhibiting those characteristics? If not, they're not optimizing learning. If they are, then they're optimizing learning. You can have a clear learning goal, be it math, reading, social studies, whatever, and still come up with activities that are active, engaging, meaningful, socially. That is active playful learning. And what you get at the end are a suite of skills, the breadth of skills that we call the 6 C's. Now, we are applying this model in communities, in schools, and in the media environment, in digital media. Today, I'm not going to talk much, actually at all, about digital media, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about our work in the schools and in the community. So let's first define what we mean by active playful learning, or what we call in the literature guided play. What we know is that there are several ways to think of play. And I know that you're thinking, mostly a free play. No explicit learning goal. It is initiated by the child. It has child active involvement and child agency and choice. Now let's go to what's likely going on in your more traditional religious schools. We would call that more of a direct instruction approach. There's an explicit learning goal that is initiated by the teacher. There's not so much child active involvement, and probably the child does not have much choice. We are creating a pedagogy in the middle. It's important that children have a learning goal in school. That's not to negate that we think free play is important as well. But in guided play or active playful learning, you have an explicit learning goal that is initiated by the teacher, where the child has active involvement, where the child has choice. But as I said, there is a clear goal that you are working toward. Here's another way of looking at it. When it's initiated by the child and directed by the child, we call it free play. When it's initiated by a child and the adult comes in and takes over, we call it a kind of co-opted play. And children just stop. When we have initiated by an adult and directed by an adult, we get direct instruction. But when it's initiated by an adult and directed by the child, we get what we call guided play. Guided play also has this clear learning goal where the teacher serves more like a coach than like a director. So in a planned play environment, as you see here in a children's museum, it's enriched with just the kinds of things that are going to help kids learn literacy. And the adult, by being what we call sometimes in the USA, guide in the side, can ask questions, suggest ways to explore materials. The research says that guided play or active playful learning actually breeds better outcomes in all of the 6 C's. So let's look at just a little bit. We have found that active playful learning enhances social regulation, language and literacy, STEM learning, hypothesis testing, and even creativity. I'm going to do a run-by of the evidence so you know that I'm not making this up. So here we go. First, for play and social regulation, it turns out that when young children are playing with one another, they're better at impulse and emotional control, more planning, more self-reliance, and we can heighten their attention and their memory. Now, why? Because when kids are interested in something, they're engaged longer and they're better able to control that engagement. Here's another way in which we can help build social regulation. Social regulation, that impulse control, is critically important in preschool. And it turns out to be predictive of later academic success in formal schooling. So what games can we play? Conducting an orchestra. This is Megan McClelland, a colleague of mine from University of Oregon. And what she finds is when each kid has a musical instrument and they have to listen to each other, they become a whole. And they have to hold back until they can hear what the other kids are doing. You might have drum circles in Morocco where the kids have to follow the beat. Again, another way to build this emotion regulation that's so important. And some of the standard games that are played by young children, whether it's block building, whether it's Simon Says, or whether it's a game we call in the US red light, green light, you can only move on the green light, not on the red light, all build these skills. In fact, it transfers to the home environment as well. When parents give more choice to young children, whether it's about choosing what cereal they want in the morning, and you might only give 2 choices, then they learn to regulate better. We also have evidence that this active playful learning breeds stronger cognitive skills like literacy. It turns out that when children act out a story, they use the vocabulary from the story, then they become better readers. When they practice rhyming skills, when they're singing songs, all these feed in to literacy later on. In some of our research, we had the teacher read a book to the class, and after they read the book to the class, they played either through free play, direct play, or the kind of guided play I've been suggesting. We gave them figurines, and we wondered if they could create the next piece of the story. And off they went to create whatever they were going to create. What did we find? The first and most important thing I want to let you know here is that the free play condition did not enhance children's vocabulary. But the directed play and guided play did. Those children learned the new vocabulary about castles and moats, and the kids in free play did not. We then went on to use different play activities, using songs, large and small group games, drama and digital games. And in all of those environments, if there was a clear learning goal, and it was active, engaging, meaningful, socially interactive, iterative, and joyful, the kids learned better. We've also done this with block play. We can't take the blocks out of the preschool. Why? Because when children have blocks, they actually start to use more spatial language. Put the red block on top of the blue block. Put the green block next to the blue block. We got a 6% increase in these kind of spatial terms. And if you look at the human brain, spatial knowledge and math knowledge appear in the same area of the brain. So that's why we should care. In fact, we came up with a test of spatial ability, a 2D and a 3D test of spatial ability. All the child had to do was to copy these designs. When 3-year-olds copied these designs, when they could rotate the figures, when they knew what went on top of and what went behind, they could predict, or we could predict, their math scores when they were 5 by 78%. That's incredible. So these techniques really work. A recent study confirms our findings that play, guided play, but not free play, actually fosters children's academic self-concept and science. Playful learning also supports critical thinking and creativity. And here's a wonderful study that came out of Cambridge a couple of years ago. What you're looking at here are what we call in our field effect sizes, the boost that you are getting by using active playful learning over now direct instruction in early literacy, expressive vocabulary, early math, shape knowledge, task switching, and pro-social behavior. All of these are the reason that in many states and in many countries around the world, they are passing policy that the pedagogy used in the school should be active, playful learning, and guided play. In our most recent research, we used these theories about guided play and that we wrote in our book, Making Schools Work, to see if we can go into real classrooms to make real change for young children. So we're testing the pedagogy. Now, our project has some preschool classrooms, but is really weighted by what's going on in kindergarten and in grade 1. But I have to show you these data because they show you what's really going on in a school environment right now and why what you're doing in Morocco is so important. But we can't just get that there is preschool. We must also have a pedagogy, a way of teachers teaching that is going to help each child thrive. What's going on in the US, in Britain, in France right now, is that in a 3-hour block, when we go to observe what's going on in the classroom, kids are mostly sitting. On the left, you see active playful learning classrooms, kindergarten, first grade, 1,100 observations of 42 teachers. On the right, you see a larger sample from Tennessee, and you see that exactly the same patterns emerge. What I want you to notice is that a large portion of the day is spent in what we call parallel instruction. Kids are sitting in circle time, listening to the teacher. They're not talking to each other. They're not having discussions with the teacher. They are just sitting in circle time, listening. 50% of the time. Non-academic, 26% of the time. That's 76% of the school day. 16% of the time, they're totally bored. So add that to your 76 and you see you're at 92. How often are they working with other kids, having conversations with teachers? Well, teacher discussion, 5% of the time. Interaction with other kids, 2% of the time. That's what we have to turn around. So in our study, we're currently working with 80 teachers in 4 states in the United States. We have 40 who are getting personalized coaching, and you might want to consider this in Morocco for your preschool teachers, and 40 who are getting what we call self-paced. That is, we're giving professional development at the beginning of the year, but we're not following it up with any professional development during the school year. We have 2 to 3 teachers per grade, per experimental school. Here, it's kindergarten to 4th grade, but I at least want to show you what we're doing and what we're finding. And we have 3 coaches per state who work with 40 teachers who are coached. We're also collecting tons of data from the teachers, from the coaches, and in observations like the observations you just saw. What we realized in the first 6 months of this study, 22 esteemed scientists from the United States working with teachers, administrators, and other scientists, that if we can somehow mandate 6 changes in classrooms, we think that we can make these classrooms into active playful learning classrooms. And here they are. One is to use small and paired groups. The second is to increase student contributions to interactions with peers and teachers. Excuse me. To support hands-on, minds-on exploration, discovery, and inquiry. To give children choice and voice in their own learning. To help students connect their learning to other experiences in and out of school. And to make it joyful. What do these 6 behaviors map onto? We think that with these 6 behaviors, we will get more active, engaging, meaningful, socially interactive, iterative, and joyful environments that will lead to better learning. So as I said, we're using coach-based model. We started with a group of 42 teachers, and immediately we saw the changes in those 6 behaviors changed the entire environment of the classroom. Here is what they reported. 100% said that our students are now collaborating more with us and with other kids. They're communicating more. They're showing more critical thinking, creativity, confidence, and self-regulation. We're also seeing that they feel, that as the teachers feel, they have better teacher-student relationships. They're better able to reflect on their own practices. And, importantly, they're delivering the state curriculum. 92% of the teachers said that they would recommend this pedagogy to every other teacher. Let's look at what we're finding this year. From 237 teachers, 6,412 students over the last year. First, we're realizing that the kids in the coached classrooms are actually advancing over the self-paced classrooms by having more paired activities. We're also noticing, and it's only a slight decline right now, but in the coached classrooms, from the beginning of the year, the teachers are allowing the kids to talk more and to learn in small and paired groups by just changing those 6 practices. We also learned from our coach report. They're telling us that there's more student agency, hands-on, minds-on learning, meaningful learning, social learning, and iterative learning, which means they're learning it in multiple ways. They're applying it outside the classroom. What are we also learning? That from week 0 to week 12, we're seeing more small groups, more student contributions, more hands-on, minds-on learning, more voice and choice from the kids, and the kids are making more connections to their learning. That is astounding because all of these are predictors to later standard outcomes. Teachers also report that they are seeing more active learners when they're in the coach condition than in the self-paced condition. Their kids are more engaged. The learning is more meaningful. It's more socially interactive. It's more joyful. And the kids want to learn more. Why is that important? Because today, in a world of AI, our kids are going to need to be lifelong learners, or they will not thrive in the future. To date, we've developed outreach for all of our programs. We have newsletters, we have manuals, we have a website with resources, and we are currently in Spanish and English. And maybe you can help us with French. But we share absolutely everything. All the work you just saw is being conducted by a large grant that was given to us by the Lego Foundation to see if we could change education in some of the most difficult educational environments in the United States. We have measurements for all of the constructs that we're talking about, and we are willing to share all of that as well. And we also have operations manuals and a guidebook for coaching. If any of you are interested in how we are supporting those states that we are working with currently and that have already passed laws in the United States, we're happy to share everything with you. Importantly, I just want to say that active playful learning is not just for little kids. In a paper that I'm working on right now, we show how this also works in college classrooms. So it goes all the way up. And one of the things I most often say is if we could take preschool education that's done well with a great pedagogy and move it up rather than taking what we do in our formal schooling and pressing it down, we would have better educated citizens in the future. Finally, I want to just give you a taste of what we are doing outside of the classroom. It turns out that children spend only 20% of their waking time in school. In a project we call Playful Learning Landscape, we're asking what we could do with the other 80% when they're not in school. So again, we're working with communities, we're working on the how of learning, we're adding the 6 C's, and here are some of our projects. Right now with Itai Palti, who's out of London and Israel, we are designing spaces based on what the community would like to see. The built architecture of the way you live becomes the foundation for adding the cognitive science into the built environment. Here you see a bus stop. It's in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, on a small plot of land where Martin Luther King, who's a very, very famous Black activist in the U.S., he gave a freedom speech here. The community said, we need you to be on this plot of land. And so we were. Notice that we built puzzles. They're active, they're engaging, they're meaningful, they're socially interactive, joyful. And what this has done is it's transformed a transit spot where people naturally waited into an active, engaged environment where kids are actually playing intergenerationally and where parents and grandparents are putting their cell phones down. We also find a 28% increase in adult-child language, in spatial and number language, and in vocab. Here's what we did in Santa Ana, where at the transit stop, the community said they wanted to bring a game from Mexico. They brought the game Loteria. It's a card game. They spin, they have to turn around the cards. It builds memory and it builds attention. This is now up in Santa Ana. And again, we're seeing intergenerational play that is building cognitive skills. Here you see what we can do with a library. Libraries in the United States had children's sections, but they were often very quiet, non-engaging, very passive. We were asked to see if we get more people to come to the library. And so, with Studio Ludo in Philadelphia, we built a rock climbing wall. We also built an area in the stacks where we put tangram puzzles. The tangram puzzles come out and become the seating in the library. What happens when you do this? We find that more children are using number, spatial, color, and letter language, up 44%. And adults put down their technology. Here's one that's for much older kids, but we're building a younger version. This is Andy Bustamante. In the United States, a game called basketball is very, very popular. So for $65 US, we painted a basketball court. Here you have a certain space you can stand, and you throw it for 1 point, or the 4-4 line, 0.5 for 3/4, 0.25 for 1/4. And on the side here, kids gather and they keep the score on a number line. What we found, we simply couldn't believe. With just 4 physical ed sessions, 4 times when these 4 to 6 graders, 10, 11, 12s, played fraction ball, they came into the class and they passed a standard fraction to decimal conversion test. Going into supermarkets, how can we take the learning out of the schools and into the supermarkets? We put silly signs like a cow. I have milk. What else comes from milk? And the kids start looking for cottage cheese and sour cream. Another example in Santa Ana, what you can do with murals and I Spy games where they have to find the green parrot or the sleeping cat, or murals in hospital waiting rooms. The point is that we can design these in any spaces to fit any architecture. This is what some of them look like for Venice in San Marco Square. We haven't put them in yet because it all got flooded. But the point is that if we're thinking about high quality pre-K and preschool education for all, remember that a good preschool education doesn't just stop at the walls of the pre-K. It also expands outside the walls into children's homes and into children's communities. We've developed playbooks for all of these installations to show how we build community efforts and community voices. These are in Portuguese, Chinese, English, and Spanish, and could be in French, along with ways to measure the impact of the installations for families and communities. The key for all of the work that we're doing is that we take our 3-part equation seriously, and we're taking the cultures that we're in and the community seriously. But we firmly believe that with the who, the how kids learn, teaching in the way that brains learn, and expanding what we think good citizens of today will need to be good citizens of tomorrow. Collaboration, communication, content, critical thinking, creative innovation, and the confidence to learn from failure, not to think that failure is a bad thing. Then we think all children can thrive. I think in Morocco, you are making an extraordinary step by making sure that by policy, all of your young children will be in high quality preschools. But the word high quality here really matters. In the United States, one of the places we failed is that we built a lot of preschools and early childhood education, but we didn't attend enough to the high quality. Thus, many of our spaces became custodial rather than high quality educational environments. We can build those. We know how. And in state after state, in country after country, and consistent with UNESCO's Happy School report, what they're doing in the OECD, and what UNICEF is doing, we believe we can bring a high quality early education to every child. I just want to thank all the folks who have supported this research. And now I want to open it up to your questions.
Thank you so much, Professor. ممكن نفتحوا المجال يمكن سؤال أو الاثنين. هي عندها لازم تلتحق عندها درس في الجامعة.
If you have any questions, she has a lecture in the university, so we need to be quick with it. If you have any questions, please. I have 15-20 minutes. Mr. Baqali.
Thank you, Professor. I was just wondering, is the transformation finance of a school high or low? Have you estimated that from a classical preschool to an APL school? What is the cost of transformation?
The truth is the cost isn't much at all. Most of the schools in the United States, or I should say many of them, have coaches that are hired by school districts. So what we are doing is training the coaches who are local to the area, local to the schools. And that way we believe it's more sustainable to have a change in the local schools. So it does cost what your professional development would cost anyway. And, you know, we can be available to ensure that that education is sustainable, maybe on an annual basis, maybe every 6 months. But once we do that, there's no turning back. In fact, I was speaking with some teachers in the state of Connecticut the other day. They have a law that's already made their schools active playful learning. And they said to us, why would we ever go back? Our kids are happy, we're happier, and our students are learning.
Thank you. If I may suggest, we're going to take 2 or 3 questions and then maybe do one whole answer if you don't mind. Okay? تفضلوا أستاذة.
Professor, thank you very much for your presentation.
في البداية لابد.
First of all, I want to commend what you have presented, dear Professor. But I have a note, a remark, talking about the preschool education, a guided preschool education for children generally. However, where is the child, a child with disabilities, with sight disabilities, hearing disabilities? I haven't heard of any techniques that includes all the other categories. So we should think about these categories in the preschool, that we need to have all of the children and include all of the categories in children. Thank you. Please, the floor is yours. Can you ask another question?
My name is Miriam Dahbi. I have a PhD in education from Harvard University with a specialty in early childhood education, and I had the opportunity to read a lot of your work with Catherine Snow, Paola Uccelli, Meredith Rowe, so great to see you. My question is about the potential for the research that you've done to be applied in Morocco with two specific respects. The first one is, what would you say the level of teachers should be in order for them to be coachable? So speaking about their educational background, speaking about their content knowledge, pedagogical content knowledge. And the second question is, in your study looking at California and other states, I would imagine some of the classrooms were multilingual or at least linguistically diverse. How did your study attend to that, and how do you think that might apply for Morocco? Thank you so much.
شكرا سيد صلاح البديع.
شكرا جزيلا للسيد
Thank you very much, Ms. Professor, for this very valuable presentation. I have two questions, in fact. The first, from my experience, from your experience, how many times would it take for the teachers to transform to this strategy? And second, what are the statistics comparing the two programs, the free playing program and on these children when they are younger, when they grow up? What are the impact comparing the two programs and the two initiatives? Thank you.
Professor,
Is it okay to, yeah?
I hope you can hear me. Well, first of all, thank you very much for a great presentation. It was really inspiring. You mentioned a couple times in your presentation the role of AI and the way and how we are entering in this new age of AI. And I'm specifically thinking about how do you see this pedagogy evolve, especially in the age of AI, with the introduction of AI agents, knowing that what is now possible and what could be possible in the near future. So maybe this is a corollary question to the two previous questions that were asked, if you can reflect on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. I think we can...
The floor is yours for the answers.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for really thoughtful questions. I'm going to try to give you really thoughtful answers. On neurodiversity, what we have found, and there is some research to support this, there is not a lot of research in this area. Let me start there. Active playful learning is a more, not less inclusive pedagogical approach. What that means is, for many of the ways in which we teach, it's what we call in the United States a one-size-fits-all. In active playful learning, you can modulate how you teach to make sure that you get to the end goal in multiple ways. You can think of it as kind of like a map in which there are multiple ways to get to a destination, not just one. So what we find, for example, with children who on the autistic spectrum is that when they are given some of these guided play approaches, they learn better than when they are just supposed to respond in one way. And that's been very exciting, though I can't tell you, as I said, that there's a lot of research in this area. All right. How would it apply to Morocco? Which also brings up the question of linguistic diversity. What we have found is that it applies readily in a lot of different cultural environments, but it applies differently in different cultural environments. Again, no one wants Morocco to be America number 2. What you want to do is come up with a quintessentially Moroccan version of what it means to engage students in a way that is true to the beliefs and cultural norms of the society in which you live. Given that, remember that it really doesn't matter for math whether you're playing with blocks, playing with cards, or playing with stones. What we're doing, which I think is the brilliance of this flexible pedagogical system, is that you can apply it to anything by, in a sense, just overlaying the how of learning. Is it active? Is it engaging? Is it meaningful? You can put that on anything. And that, I believe, is what we showed with playful learning landscapes. Now, I should also say that in the United States, our education system, it's changing so dramatically now, it's hard to even know to talk about it. But we're very state regulated. We are not national regulated. We don't have like a Ministry of Education. And within states, it gets even crazier because it's very district level. So what that meant is we needed to create the most flexible pedagogy we could that would apply whether you were in Santa Ana, California, that is a 95% Spanish-speaking community, or you were in Philadelphia and it's I would say an 80% English-speaking community. So it has proved to be very versatile as long as we are respectful of whatever the cultures we're working with and in. Now, there are many schools that have multiple languages. In fact, one of our school districts has 35 different languages spoken by the families. And so what we're doing, again, is trying to create more inroads because, look, being bilingual or trilingual, the research tells us that this is a great plus. So let's build on that, not squash it. And again, our flexibility of the active playful learning approach is its strengths. How long does it take teachers to transform? There's always going to be some teachers who want the traditional way, and they are not going to go for anything different than what they know. But I want to take you for a moment to Canada, where the province of Ontario adapted a play-based orientation in its early preschool as a matter of policy, and they created a person who bridged from the preschool to the formal education. I remember when I first gave a talk there, it must have been 10, 15 years ago. And the teachers uniformly went, well, we don't know that this is going to work. It's going to be awful. This will never happen. The teachers' union was very upset. I came back the next year to ask how it went. And all the teachers said, well, we don't know why we ever said that. We are cheerleaders now for this approach. This is why we became teachers in the first place, because we cared about kids learning. And we want to teach. We don't want to be handcuffed. So that was very exciting to see. Some faster than others. All right, how educated do teachers need to be to even learn this? That is a great question. And that's where we failed in the United States. I believe if your early childhood program is only resting on custodial care for parents, then you don't think that teachers need to have early childhood education or educational knowledge in order to work with young children. You think all they need to be is babysitters. However, there is no more ripe learning age group in the world than young children. They are our best creators. You will never find any group more curious. Never find a group more wanting to ask why, who, what's going on here, than a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. So I think the trick is to train teachers in understanding the brilliance of young children. We owe it to the children and to the families to have a trained population. If we train our early childhood population, as the woman from Harvard, I'm sure, will acknowledge, then our teachers will be better equipped to teach young children and to help them thrive. And just as an example, I want to take you to France from last week. Teachers were teach whatever the vocabulary is that they needed to teach to 5- and 6-year-olds in the classroom. And when we talked about having a more active, engaged approach, the inspector said, "Oh my gosh, this isn't possible. If we have conversations in the classroom, our kids will never get through all 100 vocabulary words." Stunning. There is not an ounce of research that tells you that if you do flashcards on 100 vocabulary words with young children, they will ever use those words again beyond the flashcard. So, yep, inspector in France, take the time to have the conversation, and your kids are likely to learn more. If we train our early childhood staff, so in our Lego study, we'll be looking at some of that. So stay tuned, and I hope to tell you at another time. I hope you invite me back to really come to Morocco. The role of AI. I've been very outspoken internationally on the role of AI, and I'm happy to share one of the pieces that just came out from UNESCO on my thoughts on AI. They really have to be divided into two camps. One is what I would call the companion camp, and the second is the potential for education camp. On the companion camp, let me say as clearly as I can that no AI agent will ever be a friend or will ever supplant human-to-human interaction. And let me give you one clear example. The AI agents are designed to acquiesce to the user, to tell the user how much they love you, to tell you that we're really going to be buddies, we can really do this together, to make you miss them. It even says, I missed you when you went off to school today. Now, I want you to compare that to an everyday 3-year-old. I don't know any 3-year-old who acquiesces to everything that another 3-year-old says, or kindly always says, I love you, let's do whatever you want to do. So on social grounds and on foundations for learning grounds, I think anything that uses an AI agent to supplement, or let me say supplement, and substitute, is not going to be good for kids. As they get older, possibly. Just as we know that educational television and we know that educational apps can be useful in some circumstances with human-to-human support. We can if designed well, then I think they can be very useful for children. Right now, they don't meet that criteria. As I look to the future, and again, if done well, and if we can avoid the misinformation that is out there for early educators, I believe it could be a boon for training early educators, for offering information on early child development to parents. We are not there yet. And I'll give you my best bet for what we ought to do in that environment. I think what we need to do, and I understand it is possible, but hasn't been done yet, is that we need to wall off an area of the web in a closed system that puts only reliable information, scientifically vetted information, leaving out things like mommy blogs and mommy podcasts and all the wonderful advice you get from moms and grandparents on the web. What we need is vetted information in a closed space that is trusted. Then I think it could be an enormous boon for helping to train educators and a resource for parents. We just aren't there yet. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you so much, Professor, for your time and for this inspiring presentation. بعد أن استمعنا إلى عرض الأستاذة كاتي هيرسباسي.
The presentation of the Professor Kat, and now I'm going to give the floor to the Director of Research. He's going to talk about the evaluation of preschool in Morocco.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. I am back. I am going to. My objective in this presentation is to give you a view about the state of preschooling in the light of the evolution I talked about before. That's what is achieved in partnership with UNICEF, and that analyzes at the same time the state of the preschooling at the level of national ways and environmental factors that explain these learnings. As I've said, these two blocks I will shed light on, but before I would like to talk about the methodology used and on the evolution of the implementation of the policy of preschooling in Morocco, and I will finish with the challenges and stakes in light of preschooling. I wanted to read all the references since 2000 and the national charter for education and for training. And it will shed light on the importance of preschooling in the trajectory of studying for the children. I will talk about the framework law in 2019 and the programs that insist on the equity and the equality. We have here. We want to analyze the results and see the social, emotional, cognitive, and the functions of the children. Some words about the methodology. The method MELCO. This was mentioned before. It consists of two pillars, and on the left we have the development and learning of the children, and on the right we have preschool learning environments. We talk about the social and emotional development and school learning, in particular mathematics and the environmental factors, the physical framework, the participation of family, the staff, teachers, and their training, their work conditions, etc. Interactions in preschooling spaces and the inclusion and pedagogy, and how pedagogical practices are implemented, and how teachers work with the children. And we say about the presentation of Hirsch-Pace, the importance of play and the competences that look playful, but they are learned through playing. This is a sample that representative at the national level. But the representativity has to do concerns children too. The sample covers 869 children and 624 parents and 180 observations in classes. And to talk about the terminology used by the Ministry of Education for 4 categories. We see public, partnership, non-structured, and private. Now this terminology has evolved, and the results concern the year 2024, which is the image of, which is not fixed, of into 2024. This reflects the situation of preschooling in this period. I would comment on the evolution of the generalization of preschooling policy. As you see here in the red graph, the evolution, we moved from 50% in 2014 and 2015 to 70% in 2024-2025. In terms of generation, especially in countryside areas, in rural areas, in urban areas, we have this equity between genders, boys and girls. If we have this always something to restore and to cover, we have to. The results are generally positive. If you see the number of children in preschooling, it's 1,300,000 who have access to preschooling. This, which is essential for education, and the budget that accompanies this reform, 1 billion of dirhams between 2016 and 2026, with a remarkable acceleration. Concerning the evolution of learnings, we are present by space, gender, and type. Preschooling, according to the terminology of 2022, 2024. It is at the national level. At the level of our children, we have 62% above the intermediate level, with the differentiation with the rural and urban. We have urban 66 and rural 58. There is no difference in terms of gender. There we have at more or less the same, 63 to 62, and there is a difference concerning tape 2024. We have 71 for private, then the partnership non-structured 76, and partnership 61, and public 57. Also, all the factors that explain these results. It's not a classification or types of preschool in preschools. Children have characteristics, socio-economic factors that impact these results. Following the pedagogical model, there are many factors that interact in this equation. The space, when we go deeper, further, there are 60. We have 62%, and we have a difference, and the impact of space on the learnings of children for the domains they have assessed and evaluated, as you see. Social emotional development, which is it's again has 68 points, the best score, and pre-mathematics 65. Then the executive function 60 points, and the last is the precocious literacy. 156, and those domains are affected also because they are related to the service, and they have to do with the pre-literacy and pre-mathematics capacities and skills. You have the global score, and this is a differentiation in terms of the domains of competence. What are the factors that may enlighten us? Enlighten these results? I will start by the environmental, family environment factor, preschooling and culture of the parents, and also the economic. More than half have parents without any level or primary level. Some children are they don't have the luxury to be accompanied by their parents because their parents are illiterate and they cannot help them in their development. So that's why we find a difference between the children of whose parents are literate and those with parents are illiterate. So there's a difference. The units that are managed by the partnership and or the public sector, and these results that don't have to do with the efficiency of the actors, and they are highly impacted by contextual factors. This graph on the left explains how the choice between public and non-structures or private or public are different. The private is frequented by 72%, and the people coming from socially worse levels are struggling with this, and on the right we have difference of score. we find that there is a part that comes back to the socio-economic status that doesn't impact only pedagogy, but also social factors and also territorial dimension. We have to help and to delete the differences and the barriers between of the conditions of children. As you see on the right, 62% of these units are meet the requirements. We have 38% do not meet the norms. We have 31% of sanitary requirements are met by these units. On the left, it's satisfactory. We have space for writing, 92 adapted chairs, etc. As for the inclusion, 43% of the institutions declare that the 101.2% are in handicapped. We don't know the reason, but it's a problem of the diagnosis. But these children exist, but they are not correctly diagnosed. It's one of the domains that calls for a reflection, and especially Morocco has launched the third investigation about to collect information about concerning the children, handicapped children, and also the integration of children in preschool education. Our educators and teachers, we find the majority are women. Especially in the public partnership, public-private partnership, we find males or men or educators of more than 10% of experience has to impact the quality of preschool education. For those disadvantaged children coming from disadvantaged environments, they are framed. They are accompanied by educators to adapt to programs, and this was launched recently in the countries that adopt the policies, good policies. They have dedicate good high quality educators to those coming from disadvantaged environments. And when we dedicate the best for the best and the less or the intermediate to the intermediate, we find that there are some differences and after the scores are variate from 60 to 6%. If we see the effect of the family's socio-economic situation, we find that there is a difference and the impact. The same thing for the educators, women, their academic profile they are not. Most of them do not have university diplomas, degrees, and even the continuous training is general and it's specific and does not concern specialized aspects of our early childhood and preschool education. this is a black spot in the units, especially in non-structured units or schools. The pedagogies, the most advanced pedagogies, require tools and highly qualified teachers and materials. Not only the salary, but the non-payment on time varies also and impacts the results. As you see, the red reflects a good accompaniment, less than 10 children. Orange, a good accompaniment between 10 and 15. Blue, the more than 20, it's intermediate and average, and green, the low accompaniment, more than 20 children per teacher. I will finish talking about educative practices, insisting on preschool in the 4 levels of interactivity. We have seen this about playful learning, less activities and less interaction, and level 2 repetitive plays, and the third some engaging strategies, and the fourth is there are many strategies of engagement and involvement of children in learning through activities and playful activities. We are before 1 and 2, and this calls for a revolution in the pedagogy in this domain, and we for additional extra domains, which is very important for the development, for the psychomotricity of children, 40%, and free play, free play, 57% of children do not benefit from free play activities. Free play, aggregated play. Participation, 44% participate, and the rest do not participate and not involved in this process. And the pedagogic differentiation to take into account the needs, the varied needs of children. And I will finish with about the challenges we still have to cover 29% from by 2028, and this multiple governance and fragmented one, the different financing and funding sources, and we have to have a clear visibility for next years, and in order to make this program able to achieve all the goals, and learning of an intermediate level with some differences between domains, literacy, lowest literacy, and also social inequalities have to impact directly the scores, and the influence of socio-economic level or situation of the family, and the capital of the cultural capital of parents on the requirements of the children, and also the educative environments with a variable quality. The professionalization, as we have said, is one of the education factors at the academic or specialized factors. This requires more investment, and all overloaded places and concerned rural areas. 60%. As you said, no quality can be assured or guaranteed. We should not exceed 20 children or 20 children per class. It should be interactive activities that involve children in the learning process. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Director. After listening to these two inaugurational presentations, and before we start the first session, the international cadres and the preschool teaching tools, I will ask you and I will invite you for a coffee break for 10 minutes and we will resume. Thank you so much.
سي دخله في الخطة. انا عبالك انا عبالك جلست بدك جلست بدك
Nous allons commencer. On commence?
Let's start. We will start. Let's respect the time framework. So,
أهلا وسهلا بكم, ladies and gentlemen.
مرحبا بكم جميع الشركاء.
welcome our. I am.
Qui œuvre dans le domaine de l'éducation et plus spécifiquement le soutien scolaire, et je suis membre de cet honorable conseil. Alors d'abord, je note une douce et belle discrimination avec un panel 100% féminin, et on a 3 intervenantes, donc Madame Tamara Arnold Urzoua, nous avons Madame Stéphanie Jamet, et avec nous en ligne, nous allons avoir Madame Rokaya Fall Diawara. Alors tout à l'heure, on a eu une présentation très passionnante de Madame Katie Hirsch-Pasek qui nous a montré comment les sciences, tout ce que pouvaient apporter les nouvelles sciences des apprentissages, ce que ça apportait à l'éducation des tout-petits. Ensuite, nous avons eu Monsieur Hichem Eit Mansour qui nous a présenté les résultats de l'enquête menée par l'instance nationale d'évaluation avec l'UNICEF. Nous avons vu les résultats et quelques pistes pour réfléchir aux défis. Et parmi ces défis, peut-être que l'un des plus importants, c'est la qualité du préscolaire. Alors, au Maroc, depuis plusieurs décennies, les réformes ont affirmé et confirmé une volonté politique forte de généraliser un préscolaire de qualité. Alors, généraliser, nous y sommes presque et nous y arrivons. Alors, de qualité, c'est l'enjeu central. Et donc, notre question centrale, c'est comment s'assurer que le développement rapide du préscolaire dans notre pays se traduise réellement par des bénéfices pour tous les enfants et surtout les plus vulnérables. Et donc, on ne parle plus seulement d'accès au préscolaire, mais de qualité de préscolaire et surtout de qualité mesurable et améliorable du préscolaire. Et donc, c'est justement cette thématique que nous allons, de la mesure et de l'évaluation, que nous allons aborder pour cette première session plénière, qui s'appelle « Cadres internationaux et outils d'évaluation du préscolaire, approche, usage et résultats ». Nous avons 3 intervenantes, donc 3 angles différents pour aborder cette thématique, 3 intervenantes de qualité pour parler de qualité, donc quoi de plus cohérent. Donc voilà, je veux pas être le méchant gardien du temps, mais nous avons hérité d'un petit retard que nous allons essayer de rattraper en essayant de ne pas dépasser peut-être 15 minutes par intervention pour laisser la place à la discussion. Donc, on commence avec Madame Tamara Arnold Urzua. Madame Urzua est économiste et consultante internationale, spécialisée dans la mesure du développement de la petite enfance. Elle nous vient des États-Unis d'Amérique. Son intervention s'intitule « De l'orientation à la pratique ». Mesure des résultats du développement de la petite enfance et de la qualité des pratiques en classe. Donc, Mrs. Tamara, we are happy to have you with us. Please welcome. We can't wait to hear you.
Salam alaikum. Bonjour, je suis ravie d'être ici aujourd'hui. Je m'appelle Tamara, et je suis from Chile, and that's all the French you will hear from me. I understand a little bit, but I don't speak very much. So thank you so much for the nice introduction. Yes, I want to know that I'm an economist, I'm an independent consultant, and even though I have worked a lot with different international organizations like the World Bank and UNICEF, I'm here as myself. I'm not representing any of these organizations right now. So what we will see today, the content is we go quickly over why early childhood development matters, how to measure ECD and ECE quality, ECD being early childhood development and ECE early childhood education, choosing the tools, and I will go over a few of the most common used early childhood development tools for 3 to 6 year old preschool education, and then choosing ECE quality tools, and I will go over some of the most used ECE quality tools. So why is early childhood development matters and why we measure it? When we all agree, like neuroscientists, economists, educational experts, that early childhood experience shapes our brain forever. It's the foundation for learning, health, and well-being, and are built in the early years, from the belly to 8-year-olds. Rapid brain development occurs from birth to age, and something very important is early interaction and environment. They shape the cognitive, social, and emotional skills. And measuring early childhood development help us to identify gaps early and guide better policies and investment. So they help us to make our children thrive. What do we measure when we measure early childhood development and preschool quality? We first measure school readiness, that is, are children prepared to start primary school? It's very important to know that in order to run, we have to first learn how to walk. Well, sometimes you can skip it, but you don't run very well. So that's why we are measuring early childhood development in preschool schools, so we can see and we can be ready so that children arrive ready to learn. We also measure the tracking. It's very important also that here, when we measure early childhood development, we want to go from one point to another. Sometimes we start low, sometimes we start high, but it's not so relevant where we start. It's the most relevant thing is that we move from one point to the other. We also measure early childhood education, so we can provide feedback to the teachers. If we know that children lack some kind of skills, we can provide feedback, we can design programs so that teachers can help us with our children so that they thrive. And most importantly, we also assess early childhood development to create policies and programs to see also if our policies and programs are working or not. So choosing the right ECD measurement tool. This comes from a report that the World Bank did. It's, if you want to choose a tool, please go ahead and review this in depth. I could speak a whole hour about this, I won't, but this is like a brief summary of how you should, what you should do to select one tool. And the first question, and the most important one, is why? Why do you want to measure early childhood development? What's the purpose of the measurement? And there could be different type of purpose, but in general, we are talking about, are we measuring for monitoring early childhood development? Are we measuring for impact evaluation? Are we measured to screening children? So that's a priority question. Who are we measuring? Are we going to assess children from what age groups? Are we measuring children from different ethnicities? Who are we measuring? What domains? There are so many tools out there, and tools measure different things. So do we want to measure early childhood literacy, numeracy, executive function, motor skills? What exactly? And how? And the how goes more about the implementation. Are we going to do it as a direct assessment? So are we going to do it directly to the child? Are we asking the caregiver? Are we asking the mother? How often? How costly? How much training? A lot of questions about logistics of the how. If you want to select tools and you don't know many tools, this is a very good starting point. It's called, there's a report, a book, which is known as the ECD Toolkits. It was published in 2017, financed by the World Bank Group. It's a guide for selecting and using ECD measurement in low middle income countries. It also has a very nice inventory, an Excel sheet, where you can kind of, to see what do you want, like do you want gross motor, so you filter which thing is important for you. It was done in 2017, so there are many tools that might not be there, but it is a good starting point. Also, most recently, the World Bank did a review of tools specifically used in FCV settings. FCV meaning fragile conflict and violence settings. And it mapped tools that were used specifically for that, and is a practical guide of how to select those tools. And now I will go over the tools, some of the tools that were most used. If you have want more information about them, you can ask later, or I can stop. But each tool, you could also do a whole session about each of the tools. So this will be very brief, I hope so. So I will start with Melco, because that's the tool that Morocco used. I also was here to adapt and train the trainers of Melco in Morocco 2 years ago. It was developed by a group that is called ECD Measure with other partners. And the age range is 4 to 6 or preschool children. It has 2 different tools that is composed by model. Model is the module of the early childhood development. One is a child direct assessment, so that is that the enumerators ask the children questions, not questions, they play together. So they assess the children directly through playful activities. And the other is the caregiver report, which is a survey that is asked to the person that knows the child the best. Usually that's the mother. The purpose of the direct assessment is either monitoring or impact evaluation, and the caregiver report monitoring. The domains you saw here what they were is early literacy, early numeracy, executive function, and socio-emotional. Melco is a bit long. It has 22 activities, and it lasts between 45 and 60 minutes. And the caregiver report is a questionnaire. It takes the child development question take 10 minutes, but it has other modules that ask, for example, for socio-economic status and other questions. So it could be even longer. It has been implemented in many countries. The list here is the list that was published a few years ago. It might have changed. One thing about Melco is Melco was done by the ECD Measure, not done, it was done with UNICEF, UNESCO, World Bank, and Brookings Institute, but ECD Measure was the one that used to provide the training. They now moved on to other tools, so if you look online, you won't find much about Melco, but that doesn't stop countries who still using it. For example, I know that Ethiopia is still using Melco and just train a new group of trainers to keep using the tool. But that's why I don't have a QR code here. The next tool I will be talking about is called IDELA. IDELA was developed by Save the Children. It's also the age range is very similar. It's a direct assessment. And the difference with Melco and other tools is that they also measure motor skill. There is a big overlap between Melco and IDELA. There are many activities that are the same, which is nice for comparison. It has 24 activities and lasts between 30 to 40 minutes. It has been used, translated in more than 50 languages and used in more than 40 countries. So it's used more widespread. Then we have AMECD. AMECD was developed by the World Bank Group. I am also part of the AMECD group. Also is aimed for 4 to 6 year old. AMECD was done, the motive was, it was based on MELCO. So the group that developed AMECD studied a lot of data sets from different countries that had implemented MELCO, and with a lot of psychometric analysis, they selected the activities that provided more information, that predicted child development the best. And with that in mind, they shortened the tool, and instead of the 22 activities, it's 14 activities. And the time of implementation is also much shorter. Instead of 45 to 60 minutes, it's between 20 to 30 minutes, which is something important for young children. It's the same with the caregiver report. They also chose the items that had better psychometric power, and the survey is much shorter with 20 items and it's 5 minutes only. It has been translated officially in all those languages, English, Arabic, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, and Swahili, and implemented in more than 20 countries. But it also has been used in other languages. And just to note, I remember someone asking here about hearing impairment and listening impairment. Most of the tools don't include those children when they measure because the tools ask different things. But last year in Kenya, they adapted AMECD for children with hearing and visual impairment. Another tool that I will show you is EGRA. EGRA and ECMA are both for older children, typical grade 1 starts, grade out at 3. It was developed by RIT, also a child direct assessment, and it's more for systematic diagnostic and monitoring. And it focuses more on foundational reading skills. It takes 10 to 15 minutes per child, but it also varies because some countries add additional subtasks. And it has been adapted in 120 different languages and more than 70 countries. One interesting thing about EGRA is that also I think in Tanzania they are using EGRA AI. So they're using AI to record the voice of the children and helping to do it a little bit faster. ECMA is the same as EGRA, but for foundation reading, no, it should be math skills, foundation math skills. Now moving, following a similar view of how to choose an early childhood development tool, here's how to choose to assess the quality of early childhood education. And why is this actually important? Because when we measure early childhood development, we know how the children are in one moment of time. But what can we do with that information? So assessing early childhood education helps us to know what's actually happening in the classroom and can help us to design policies to address where the children are doing the weakest and help the teacher to perform better. So why do we measure? It's important when you choose a tool, again, this is all about choosing tools, know the purpose of the assessment. So why are we doing it? Is this also monitoring? Are you designing policies? Where will the assessment take place? Will it be directly in the preschools? Will it be in home settings? Will it be mixed age or one age? What indicators of quality will be measured? Are we measuring structural quality or process quality? Structural quality has more to do with infrastructure, with teachers ratio, teachers education, and things like that are very, very important. But process quality has more to do with the interaction. And as the first session that we had, interaction are the key for changing children's outcome. So we need to see also how teachers are interacting with children and what is actually happening in the classroom. And the last question is how will the assessment be conducted? So here again, there are a few tools that are more used in the for measuring early childhood education. start also with MELE. MELE is also from part of MELCO and is part of the ECD measure group. It's center-based, so that means that you go to the preschool and observe the classroom. It measures process and structural quality and lasts half day or 3.5 hours of observation. And it also includes interviews for the teacher and the director. The training is medium intensity, 2 to 3 days of training, and it has been used in more than 10 countries. MELE, the group from MELE moved now to a new tool that is called Becky. Becky is based in MELE, but it's simpler, it's more dichotomic questions. Those that are familiar with MELCO, it was a different scores depending on what you were observing. It's high or medium requirement of intensity of the training. While Becky is simpler, it's dichotomic. Is happening this? Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. The observation is also shorter, it's 90 minutes of observation, also with some interviews for teachers and director. The nice thing also about Becky is that they can also be used for home-based centers as well as for preschools. It has been used in more than 10 countries, is relatively new. Another tool that is used a lot, also from the World Bank Group, is Teach ECE. It's a center-based observation tool. It mostly focuses on process quality, so it mostly focuses on interaction between the teacher and the learners, and it has some structural questions. It lasts 1 hour. It's 15 minutes of observation, and then you take notes and score, and then again 15 minutes of observation. It's very high intensity. It's 4 days on in-person training, but there is also remote options of training. It has been used in more than 20 countries, and it has, what is super nice about TGC is that it has a lot of complementary resources for doing data analysis, for presenting results, also for training. And TGCE is also available in Teach Primary and Teach Secondary, so if you want to do the whole range of education. Another tool is SEFRS, which is part of the Child Development Institute. Also, the age range is 3 to 4. It's center-based. It centers in process and structural quality. It takes between 3 to 4 hours. It's moderate to high intensities. Take like 3 to 5 days of training. And it has been used in multiple countries, primarily high and middle income countries. It's very detailed, like that one is very detailed what you have to observe and has multiple indicators. One that is similar is SEFRS, and the main difference here is that it's home-based. So if you have home-based early childhood education centers, that's something you can use, and it's also very good for when you have multi-age grades in preschool. CLASS is another famous classroom observation tool from Teachstone, center-based. It focuses only in process quality. It also is interval observation, so you observe, I think, 20 minutes, and then again 20 minutes, and then again 20 minutes. The training is very high intensity. It's been used globally, including high and middle and low-income countries. And it requires continuous certification. This is more costly than the other tools. I think for CLASS you have to pay for each use. And one that is a slightly different tool is Stalin. Stalin is very interesting because it's center-based, but it measures the time of use, what they're doing. So it records like snapshots, multiple snapshots. So you have to look at your clock and say, now I observe. What is happening? Are they doing this, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, stop. Then 15 minutes later, again and again. So you can see time on task, if you want to say, and how many times one activity is happening. So to finish my presentation, just because I want to make it short because I know we are a little bit behind. One key message that I will say, if I have to say one message today, is that we have to know the why. Why is the most important, which should drive all our choosing the tool. And if I could recommend something, it's also start from the very questions. What do you want to do with the information? Are you want to do a policy? Which policy? How do you want to present this information? Which number do you want to know? And from there, start going back to see the tool that you need, could help you the best. There is not good or bad tools. There are tools that are better for what you want to do. And that's something important to keep in mind. As we said, like there is a joke, an economist joke, that they say there is someone, you arrive to a house, there is someone looking for the keys behind a lamp, and looking and said, why are you looking here? Where did you lose the key? I lost them over there. But why are you looking here? Because here's the light. And that's what we do usually, is that we have the tool, so we measure this, but actually we want to measure that. So focus on that, choose your tool in that, and then decide what to use. Don't focus on the light, focus on what you want or where you lost the key. So choose a tool that fits your purpose and keep measuring to inform better decision. One-time measure is not enough. We want to see how things evolve over time. So that's more or less my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tamara. Alors, Madame.
شكرا.
So, Madame Tamara Arland has presented for us a bird view of many tools and development of early childhood. It's interesting to see this multiplicity of approaches, and we have seen it was very important to realize that to make a good evaluation and assessment, we don't have to use a lot of tools, but a good assessment is based on the choice of the best tool adapted to realize our objectives, and especially the instruments that will give us relevant information to help us make decisions. In brief, we don't need to use many tools, and you need to measure everything what is important and relevant for our objective and the decisions we want to make. Thank you very much, Tamara. I don't know if Madame Rokhaya is with us. We have a second speaker remotely. So, hello. We are happy that we have us with us, even remotely. Madame Roa is specialized in educative programs and global advisor in education and protection of early childhood at UNESCO. We talk about us the tools of self-assessment and to reinforce the quality, equity, and the governance of preschool education. I thank you. You might know how I regret not being with you physically. I will try to do my best to give you the most important and the most of my essence of my presentation. My presentation is rich of information and complementary to what I will. I have done with President speakers. It has to do. It's a tool of measurement, of self-evaluation, of the progress in terms of education and protection of early childhood for transformation. The SCCE part, it's in English, and it refers me to early childhood education progress assessment tool for transformation. And in this presentation, I will rapidly to make you navigate and surf through the notions and the conceptual framework. Second, the level of application and the deployment of the program. And third, rapidly the tools, to talk about this tool and what it means. First, the evaluation framework of UNESCO for transformation, and this slide that recapitulates many points to have that were the results of the previous were treated upon which light was shed in previous presentations. To give you the example of theory of change, what do we mean by education and the protection of early childhood in a transformation system? There are some hypotheses. We have positive elements and favorable factors, and we have tried to make in red the items that may be problematic in our assessment, and to put them in a perspective of legal approach. If the programs of early childhood are underfinanced and underfunded, we will have the good elements to answer this question and this hypothesis. The EPP, early childhood protection and education, and the formal and formal preschooling for children, and why is it interesting to revise the approaches in this scholarization, this preschooling? It has to do has to do with the efficiency, and the third has to do with the inequalities from a financial perspective, and from a perspective of pedagogical approaches and coordination between the different ministries. This leads us to, from the UNESCO level, I will get back to the integration of Amara, the presentation of armada of tools that we have about education, or the question of early childhood, and we don't have found in the ACC part the tools, because this is a new tool. We will say that from conception to today's phase, 12 years from the World Summit for Transformation, and it has to do with the development and the contact with the countries, and to pass to the implementation. And the ECC part, it's a self-diagnosis tool. It's very important for us. It is a tool for self-diagnosis developed to be put in the hands of the state and to be used with knowledge, with full knowledge and with full freedom. So we cannot. What we can say about this is this is the first level, and it's very important. The SCC part it's a tool, simple for use, but that is very important in relation to other tools we have seen. And we can put it in the highest level of priority in terms of evaluation, and the why we are going to find ourselves in front of the insufficient finances and fundings. That's what we call the tool that is composed of 4 dimensions. Every dimension is subdivided into little dimensions, and they have 4 questions to answer, and you will see in the diagram that we have in front of you, and in the deployment of the tools.
So we have developed 2 other modules, and it has been under a demand. So this to say that we have addressed the question of data, and we know how this is really working, because we don't have enough data. And we wanted to develop a module which is specific, that will go further in details to have all the information for the management of education, for example. And how can we have a module dedicated just to this? And inclusion for early childhood. We have tackled this module, which is inclusion. That is really important. And it can be the starting pack. If the country judges as it is important. And we have discussed with the organization if we can have an additional module that will tackle other questions about health, nutrition, and protection. These are some essential parts about this, and this will give us 4 levels of progression. So each country using the PAC EPP EPAT can really mention or know where they are in initial level, emerging level, aligned level, or transformative level. And we have a pack that comes with this tool that has a guide, including conceptual framework, the methodology, guidance notes, composition of the national evaluation team, and questionnaire, of course, that is in an Excel format, and a glossary. This is to say that this results for EPP or ECC, it is a tool or a generic diagnostic tool for ECE system transformation applicable to all national contexts, and it helps to rapidly identify realistic and country-specific pathways for ECE transformation, and it will trigger an international and regional dialogue on ECE and knowledge exchange. So it is a global observatory and benchmarking tool to analyze the strengths and weaknesses of national ECE ecosystems. So it is really important. This objective is for the also near future. And this is something that we will work on and still developing. Secondly, it will be about the opportunities for implementation and deployment in countries. So, first of all, we need first to come up with a national team. If this, so we need really a national team and not just one section or one partner. For example, we need to have the different, all the different entities, for example, government ministries, communities, and all the competent authorities working on early childhood education. And this is just as an indication, but it can be adopted on the level of each country. For the government ministries, also, for example, the National Statistic Authority, national legal or regulatory entities are important. And also for the different types of personnel, we have parents, private sector, also research. All these actors need to have representatives in this framework in order to go forward. Now, for methodology for country implementation, we start with the first phase, which is the initiation. It's a phase of motivation. Then we have meeting and also like sharing of the conceptual framework, establishing the national self-assessment team. And then we have a self-assessment to really verify all the information. And then, of course, we will have the quality assurance and feedback. So this is the methodology as it is implemented. Now in green, you will have all the countries when this tool is really deployed in Morocco. So we had an interesting workshop under the ministry also. Thanks to them, we have worked with different entities to analyze the situation in Morocco and to assure the production of this important matter that can be shared afterward. And we have regional dynamics. And all of this under the ECCP pack in order to come up with these decisions regarding the different systems or within this regional system. For example, for Canada and France, this tool is now deployed. These are just some examples of countries. So the countries in green work with it, and we have the countries that manifested themselves to work with it. Now we will move on to this questionnaire and how it is working. So we have different dimensions. First of all, it is the politics, governance, and financing. We have the policy and legal framework, regulatory framework, financing and accountability and monitoring. And we have under the policy and legal framework, it is legal recognition, policy and strategic vision, coordination and sustainability, policy implementation. For the second, the same for financing, it's public investments, equitable distribution, and so on and so forth. And I will not really give you these different, you will have the presentation and you can see in details how it is presented. So this is just to give you an idea of the key factors, because when we use this factor, sometimes when we are reading a question, I can say, oh yeah, this I have already read that. So it is really, or the last column will help you the link with other questions. And you will have the second element. And we have also infrastructures, inclusions, and engagements of parents and communities within each. You will see the dynamics. We can really go quickly in order to have questions for this or to have the room for discussions. We have quality and pertinence, and we will find the evaluation and monitoring, the transition through primary education. So here we are really tackling 0 to 8 for the protection of early childhood. And this is how we can work for or to see the personal. So this is an option that we wanted to add. And we wanted to have the personnel at another level for recruitments, training, for the governance and personnel management. And you will see all these questions. And that was it for us. We find at the end an Excel tool with all the details and results. And you will find how it can be represented. This is just some examples. So here we have the example of Tanzania with the progress levels rapidly. We will have, or we will show in 1 minute the tool and how it looks like with its Excel format. I will end my presentation on this. So this is an Excel tool. You really don't, or we really don't need to have competences in Excel matters. So in the tool, you will find the color codes and the principal question. It's the first when we will see, or we will have the central question. Starting from this central question, you will find 3 other columns that are in white. And why we need to have this type of question? What are the potential sources that we need to examine in order to answer this question? And what are these examples in the countries? So you can have answers. And this is an example. Once we are done, we can just choose the 4 progress level that we can show that are ready to be saved. And in order to choose this progress level, we will end with 2 other columns, and it will give you like a rate, and you will explain all the elements to understand the situation. And lastly, the last column, each information in this tool need to be referenced with the different tools. Laws, either laws, decrees, any documentation that can justify that you have really reached this level that you are mentioning. And when we have gaps here, we need to work on the realization of transformation. And at the end, this will give you a glossary that explain all the different elements, and you have a page with the different results presented. This is in general the key elements that we wanted to share with you on how we can use this tool, ECC EPAT, and it is an auto-evaluation or auto-assessment tool for the children between 0 to 8 years. And we will have all the questions that are related to, of course, preschool, but we have others. And thank you so much for your attention. Merci. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Ruqayya Farwana, for this tool that you've presented. It's a participatory and it needs an institutional capacity. And it is helpful in auto-assessment with financing, governance, personnel, pedagogy quality. So it's a holistic vision, and Morocco uses this tool. And as we have seen with Madam Tamara, it is in order to help us in the decision-making process. Thank you once again, Madam Ruqayya. Now we have our third presenter, Stephanie Jamet. She is specialist in the early childhood. And also she works in OCD. She will share with us also about evaluation, but it is another perspective. Thank you once again. I will present this survey, TALIS. So what is TALIS survey? It is an international survey of staff and leaders in early childhood education and care. So we ask different questions to the staff leaders about their different practices, how they see their careers, their evolution, if they are satisfied with their work, and also other questions regarding management and the governance. It is the second time that we have done this survey. In 2024, we had some countries that have participated, including Morocco. So for my presentation, I'm talking about the children that are in preschool and also for the children under age of 3. Why this international survey? So we try to approximate the quality of ECEC environment and also to learn about the drivers of quality. Thirdly, to investigate variation in the quality of ECEC within the system. And also it is a tool for policymakers and researchers to monitor and compare these systems. Now, concretely, we use questionnaires for either the staff that work with the different children. We either call them educators, assistants, or other. We have a questionnaires for leaders, and we have also a combined questionnaire to leaders as well as staff duties. And also we have one targeted to staff based in home. How does TALIS work in this specific spectrum? So it is an environment for children's development, and it is also for their well-being and learning. We have 4 big dimensions or main dimensions. First of all, we have talked about the equity and diversity, which is key and at the heart of this pillar. So this is the first quality dimension, and it can be linked to different characteristics: leader and staff, staff leader child interactions, and also ECEC center characteristics. So it is really helpful to know about this interaction. So we have experts in the matter that takes into consideration research and define different questions or thematic that needs to help in the learning of children. And as Tamara has mentioned, we don't have till now a specific assessment or evaluation for children, so we cannot link between the two till now. Now, regarding the process quality, these questions are for educators. When the educator say that yes, we need to answer it, in some countries we are exaggerated, but we want to have some comparable we have different questions that are linked, and we have also different domains that has been mentioned, like digital, the approach of development, and other. So also we have different information about characteristics. I will not dive into the details. And if they are capable to maintain different tasks. We have also other indicators. And different question regarding how they can evaluate. And auto assessment tools. And also we have other services like social services. How did the OECD use data for TALIS Short and Strong in the initial report that was published in December? The idea So this system proposes rich activities where the staff are really competent and can interact with parents, and it is linked with other institutions like health services, other schools or schools for also the workforce. It really gives the job satisfaction, and it has different career paths. It is also opened the doors for learning and collaboration opportunities, and we have a reasonable level of stress. And we have a system which is of quality across public and private settings, and it is limited staff absence and shortage. This is how we organized all of this. I will show you some examples, concrete examples.
Qui disent tous les jours, ils font des activités qui aident les enfants à exprimer leurs sentiments.
So we have the percentage to help children express their feelings and to read books to children. And we can see this through all the different questions. But the thing which is not really that interesting, or what is interesting, it's how we can compare between the systems. So we will really insist on the development of these two domains. We have the Denmark, for example, and other countries as an example. What we want to know is this type of interaction and what determines that type of interaction. So we work with models when we link the use or some practices with children. So we try to come up with this relation. So the different educators that can document and we have an adaptive pedagogical practices. This type of message, it is for politics that have a time of work when we can perform this type of tasks. Other way to learn about quality, we can ask the different educators about questions. In particular, we have asked what is your need in terms of training in all the countries. It is the training or professional training to work with children with specific needs. What we see in orange, it's the educators that have mentioned that point. And if it can be so the type of interpretation can be how it is we can give an importance to this domain. So the priority is the problem of the shortage of qualified staff. I will really just or we will end on this question of the private-public divided in this sector. So we see here the difference of the composition between different institutions.
Dans les établissements publics, davantage dans les petites villes, les établissements publics se trouvent davantage dans les quartiers défavorisés. Et alors après, pour regarder,
can see that we have different indicators. We have here the public settings more common in small town or rural areas. We also have public settings more common in less favorable neighborhoods. We have adequacy of physical space more common in private settings, and also informal communications with parents more common in private settings, depending on different indicators.
qui ne permet pas de réduire les inégalités. Voilà, le genre de choses qu'on fait ici, c'est qu'on prend un ensemble d'indicateurs pour voir un peu comment un pays se situe. En bleu, là, ici, ce sont un ensemble d'indicateurs sur le premier pilier pour les enfants et les familles. En bleu, c'est quand c'est favorable, et en blanc, c'est quand c'est moins favorable.
So we have most favorable outcome, least favorable outcomes. So we need to see the more countries, for example, Ireland.
Et où est-ce qu'il est moins performant? Pointer vers les points forts, une fois éclairer des politiques. Par exemple, on voit tout au bout là que
So we can see here that the rates of the percentage of stuff adopted are really low, and thank you for your attention. Thank you so much, Madame Jamé. You have shared in details how can we work or how we do this tally survey. So the personnel and the different directors of institutions who come up or who answers this survey. And all of this is in order to have a favorable environment of learning. We have the practices, different practices, activities, leadership, well-being. And this tally survey, it gives or it opens the path for the different personnel working in the education that can come up with evaluation surveys. And it also highlights the indicators, some indicators. For example, we tend to forget about climate, environment, well-being. And before the questions? So we had three presentations and three levels that are really essential and important. We have seen first a concentration on a diagnosis of systems with Rukaya, and with Stephanie it was more about the comprehension of the different conditions of work for the personnel of education. And here the challenge is how to articulate and to interpret this as a holistic. And I have 3 points that we can share. So first, for the preschool, the preschool is important. So it is important, but not as like anyway. Second, quality of preschool is multidimensional. We have the different infrastructure, training, and it is not just about infrastructure and curriculum, but it is we have also other important quality, which is about, for example, practices, the condition of work, well-being. That are really important factors. Two. Third point, evaluation. It's not the end goal. So they have all really tackled this point. The different instruments need to be chosen and adapted in order to have a collective and to be a mirror for functioning and not just a tool for punishment. And finally, for the instruments, we don't need to have this. Sometimes we have like vulnerable systems, so we need to pay attention with that. And we have this tension between the international comparison and local sensibility. And the sentence to close with, or the sentence that we need to close with, it is not the most sophisticated tool but we need to really rethink about the adaptability and conformity. Thank you so much once again to you all. Thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, do not hesitate.
Alors, comme on n'est jamais aussi bien servi que par soi-même, je vais commencer. Alors, j'ai deux questions en réalité. J'ai une question pour Madame Jamé, c'est concernant les Thalys. À la fin, ce qu'on récolte, c'est des données déclaratives. En fait, c'est des gens qui parlent d'eux-mêmes. Donc, il y a quand même un risque de sur- ou sous-estimer ou des croyances ou des pratiques. Alors, est-ce il arrive qu'on croise ces données déclaratives avec d'autres observations de terrain, juste pour s'assurer que c'est pas uniquement des croyances qui peuvent peut-être biaiser la prise de décision? Et j'ai une autre question, peut-être plus générale pour tout le monde. C'est qu'en est-il des outils pour une vision à plus long terme? Par exemple, les outils qui nous permettent de voir la cohérence et la continuité intercycle. Par exemple, du préscolaire au scolaire. Est-ce que le préscolaire nous permet de préparer mieux comment sont les enfants après plusieurs années, etc. Voilà. Donc, s'il y a d'autres questions. تفضل أستاذ.
You didn't.
Thank you.
I think it's. Yeah, so she was asking about the. She was asking about what if we can have these evaluations in classroom and not just by answering the surveys. And now for the how can we identify some terms or glossary? I want just to mention one. Do we say really it's preschool or primary school? Do we want to learn that the students will learn and just to adapt them and that they will be ready to go to school? It's just a terminology matter. And secondly, we had one example that is
الآن دخلنا إلى التعليم أولي مؤسس انطلاقا من الميثاق وما تلته من التعديلات ومن المرجعيات سواء الدولية أو الوطنية. الإشكال لدينا هل قمنا بتقييم هل التعليم التقليدي السابق لم ينتج أطرا ما الخلاصات التي يقدمها التعليم الحالي المؤسس. المسألة الثالثة التي أود أن أشير إليها يلاحظ بشكل عام أنه في العروض غياب تعامل مع الأشخاص ذوي إعاقة بشكل عام وإعاقة بصرية بشكل خاص. أعتقد هذا المعطى يجب أن يحضر في السياسات وفي الممارسات لأنه إشكال نعاني أكثر ليس فقط على مستوى التلميذ على مستوى الطفل ولكن حتى على مستوى الأطر المشرفة داخل المراكز المكلفة بتكوين الأساتذة. غالبا لا نجد شعب خاصة بتكوين أساتذة في هذا المجال. هناك تكوينات متعلقة بالتكوين المستمر إلى حدود ما ويصبح مؤهلا لممارسة التدريس مع هذه الفئة. شكرا لكم.
Donc, peut-être on peut passer aux réponses.
Concernant, oui, l'enquête Thalys, effectivement.
So regarding the Tally survey, it is dedicated to educators. And yes, we had a strategy of sampling in order to have a sample that is really representative of the population of these educators. And also the questions are reviewed by specialists. Because these are really some biased thematics. So we need to have or to be vigilant when it comes to the analysis of these results. That's what I have tried to mention from my presentation. So generally, we will work with 2 indicators minimum and not just 1. This will help us in these analysis. And yes, we don't really if we have this evaluation, I will say that there is questions regarding, of course, the educators, also the different children to know about this. And this is what we have seen through all the different presentations. We are trying to involve and to develop on this matter, but now we are not really well developed. So I think that's why we need to work on. For the children with specific needs or children with disabilities in general, we have the personnel, and this is a message, and we want really, or that it really needs training, and it is a field that we need to work on, because we have shortage of personnel that is qualified to work with these children with specific needs, and it comes a lot to us. Thank you, Stephanie. Tamara, maybe you have like some reflections or comments, something you want to add in general?
So I didn't understand the question. So if you have any specific questions.
Long-run vision, like do we have any tools to measure long-run vision and like consistency intercycles?
Okay.
And there were questions about disabilities, like disability children. Do we have tool to measure performance?
Okay, regarding the measuring the transitions, what we measure in early childhood education, what we measure in the first years of life change. So what we want to measure in preschool is not the same that we want to measure in primary or in secondary. So there is no tool that I know of that goes the whole trajectory. But there are many studies that do some correlations between what was measured in the early years and what happened like later on in life. Very famous studies is the one in Jamaica that measure interventions in the first years of life and then measure different outcomes all over till they are adults. I think now maybe they are grandpas currently. That's something I'm not sure. But so there is no tool that measures that, but it's important to keep going on in the different stages of learning. Regarding children with disability, I think it's very important to include children with disability in all the measurement that we can. They are part of our learners, they are part of our community, they are part of us. So, but I am aware that it's very difficult to adapt tools specifically for measuring childhood development. Most of those tools measure our screening, so they can tell you if the children or the child has actually a delay or if they are in the spectrum. They can assess what they need, but it's not so much that they can measure the development and how they are. It's like a parallel track. But I'm convinced that this is something very important to have into account and to continue measuring that. Thank you.
Thank you. Rokaya, on ne vous a pas oublié, on sait que vous êtes avec nous. Je ne sais pas si vous avez quelque chose à rajouter.
Rukaya, we know that you are still here with us. Maybe do you want to comment on anything? Maybe I want also to add about the inclusion matter. Concerning us, for our tool, it has different type of questions that help us to measure the level of integration and inclusion of these children with specific needs on different levels. I have talked about the 4 dimensions, but on these 4 dimensions, we will have always different questions that and also we are developing our additional module that will complete these different practices. For inclusion here in this matter, we normally just have some action elements, and it is really tackling just any physical disability, but we will try to go further with all the different markers of inclusion. For example, for the pedagogical procedures, and we see once we are elaborating this curriculum or the curriculum, have we really adapted all of the measures? It is really integrated in the practices, pedagogical practices. It is really integrated in the training of the different educators, so they can diagnose and also really detect. We are not talking about medical here, just to have the possibility to say, I have here a need to go explore further this or this child. So this is sometimes a thing that is important. So the mental health of children is important also. And we take all of this into consideration, and we will have, as I've mentioned, additional module that we will go further, and not just politics, how even the educators practice the different actions in class. And this all are elements that we will have or we will tackle in this ECCE path with all other concepts. And also for the different resources. So it is really a large vision that we will have. And rapidly, for the first question about if we have any tools, yes, I agree with Stephanie and Tamara. We don't really have now. We have just some tools, but they are specific tools, and we can have some mechanisms, but they are not really tools that we will use. Maybe some procedures, maybe surveys, maybe questionnaires, but not just a tool that can measure that. So that our children will succeed. Thank you so much, Ruqayya. Thank you all. So tomorrow we will be here at 9:30 to start with financing of preschool as a model of governance, and have a great end of the day. Thank you so much to you all.